Hi, Tom from bkmnutrition.com, and today I want to talk about macros, and specifically macros for fat loss. How important macros are for fat loss. Should we be governed by macros when we're looking at constructing our fat loss meal plan? How important they are for ultimately getting the end goal, which is a leaner body, a six-pack, your bikini body, whatever you're looking for. And loads of people do macro-based diets, and there is a whole industry devoted to just coaching on macros. Is obviously a really big thing, and a lot of nutritionists I use just give their clients macros. I give my clients macros if they need it, and all these macro calculations, they obviously come from a calculator which gives you guidelines, and so it's really important to think, well, how important are macros in determining our end goals? And that's what I'm going to discuss today. So first things first, when we're talking about fat loss or weight loss, remember I talk about fat loss. Now weight loss is something I have to talk about because that's the industry, that's the market. People want weight loss when actually want fat loss to in order to get into their bikini or look good on the beach, that sort of thing. So if we're talking about fat loss and weight loss comes from fat loss, then actually macros are not the number one thing to be thinking about. The number one thing to be thinking about if you're looking for fat loss is calories. Now obviously you've got to get your calories right. Now I have a calorie calculator on my site, bknutrition.com/calculator. If you want to go there and put in your details, it will give you your calories that you need for fat loss, and then all you need to do is eat to those calories, and then you will lose body fat. Now I know there's people who talk about, oh, but you should be having this much this much that, and oh no, you can't just lose weight eating Haribo's alone, or you can't just lose weight eating McDonald's alone, and blah blah blah. But yes, you can. Unfortunately, the world is not as just as that. As long as you are eating foods within your calorie intake, then yes, you will lose body fat. And I've talked about this on other videos. We've got things like the Twinkie diet, the ice cream diet, the McDonald's diet. Now that's not the Morgan Spurlock one. That's the Morgan Spurlock one. Sorry, that's the other one that I talk about in my book, where this personal trainer did McDonald's. He had a protein shake as well after workout, I think, but ate within his calories and lost weight and improved his health markers. So yes, you can. You lose body fat just by eating within your calories, and you know that they're not really worrying about the food groups you're eating. But however, if you're going to do that and just to eat to your calories, you're going to find that you probably want to have a lot of willpower there, because things like McDonald's, Twinkies, ice creams don't contain a lot of fiber. They don't fill you up. So what happens is you're probably going to get very hungry in between meals. Now, if you can stick that and you can put up with that, then great. You know, that's you know, do that. Go and eat whatever food you like. Lose body fat. However, it's not just about losing body fat. Now I know for a lot of people when they're starting out, and I work with sometimes very overweight people who have a lot of weight to lose, and when I'm working with those people, the ultimate thing is, because they haven't got habits built, they're not aware of calories, they don't know what the foods they're eating, how that impacts on them. The number one thing we're looking at with those clients is just to get them eating within their calories, because they're not eating within their calories, they're overeating continuously, which is why they're gaining body fat. So they, first of all, without thinking about anything else, we want to be thinking about getting your calories right. And so if you are a very overweight person, what I would suggest is the first thing you do is look at making sure you're eating within your calories. Now, if you use my calorie calculator for this and you are very overweight, you might need to adjust it slightly, because the metrics on it will not account for if you have 5 or 6 stone to lose. So if that is the case, please feel free to drop me a message at tom@bknutrition.com, and I'll give you a little multiplier, a little adjuster to be able to work those out. I'm totally happy to help with that. But if you have just say 1 or 2 stone to lose, the calculator will work fine. You just need to eat to those calories. So if you are severely overweight, then please start looking to eat to your calories as a starting point. However, once you have established that you can eat to your calories and you are losing weight at a regular pace, the thing you do need to be thinking about is preserving muscle tissue. Now this sounds like it might be a bodybuilder thing. Oh, why do I want to preserve muscle tissue when I'm really overweight and all I want to do is lose weight? Well, I'll tell you why. Because the more muscle you've got, the more exercise you can do, the more calories you can burn, and also having more muscle means that you can dispose of any carbs you eat within that muscle to be stored as glycogen. So it is very, very important to make sure we're maintaining the most amount of muscle we possibly can while we're losing body fat. So that brings us on to why protein macros are important. Now, protein macros, I tend to, if you've seen in my other videos, I tend to stick to around about 1.8 to 2 grams per kilo of lean body weight, I should say, for this, so if you are severely overweight, remember you've got to take that into account as well. 1.8 to 2 grams of lean body weight in order to keep the muscle you've got, but also to build new muscle. Now again, you might be thinking, well, I'm overweight, I don't go to the gym, I don't train, the only exercise I do is walking around. Funny as it may sound, if you're increasing your activity, you will start to build a little bit of muscle doing that. Now it won't be massive, you're not going to turn into Arnold Schwarzenegger overnight, but the more exercise you do, the more your muscle does grow, albeit at a very small rate. So we do need to be making sure we're giving the body adequate protein for that. There's also another beneficial element of protein, which is it keeps you full for longer. The more protein you eat, the longer it takes the body to digest it, and then the more full you feel for longer. So generally what I find with clients with a high protein diet, they can eat a lot of chicken or steak or lean turkey or that sort of thing, add some salad and stuff to it, a very small amount of carbs, and they'll be full for a long time. So eating protein has two benefits. So there's building muscle, maintaining muscle, but also keeping you full for a longer period of time. And also here's another interesting thing, which I've talked about in other videos again, is that the more protein you tend to have in your diet, actually the leaner you tend to become. And there are studies that have been done to show that the higher protein diets, and we're talking about 3 to 4 grams per kilo type diets, those individuals, even though on paper they were in a calorie surplus, they actually got leaner and built more muscle and got a leaner body composition. So there is real evidence there, both with my clients and with researched evidence, that the higher the protein you can get in your diet, that potentially the better results you're going to get with body composition. And when I talk about body composition, I'm talking about the level of muscle you've got to fat. So if we want a better body composition, we've got more muscle, less body fat. You might even be the same weight with a better body composition. So, and this is something I've also talked about in other videos. So, so we're looking at high protein if we can. And so the macros for high protein would be 1.8 grams per kilo as a minimum, and sometimes they tend to work up to 2.5 to 3 grams per kilo in some individuals. Now you've got to obviously maintain in a calorie deficit, even though I've just talked about that some people have increased their calories over what is on paper to a surplus and lost more weight. But you've got to run before, so you've got to walk before you can run. You've got to get those calories down first, then look at maintaining the protein, and then we can look when you're leaner to increasing protein in order to get that excellent result. Generally, I tend to use that increasing protein to a higher level hack, if you can call it that, with clients where we've hit a wall, where we can't drop their calories anymore, can't do any more cardio because they're already very active. So we look at increasing their protein to potentially get that effect. So first of all, get calories right, make sure you're losing weight in that, then look at hitting your protein. Now, in terms of carbohydrates, if you are someone who exercises a lot, does a lot of weights in the gym, does a lot of running, then or exercise like triathlete, that sort of thing, swimming, rowing, anything that is very explosive in nature, then what I would suggest is you want to be tipping your carbs in your diet higher than, say, your fat balance. So, and people will talk about that that you only need, it doesn't matter what calories you eat. And I've said this before, you don't matter what calories you eat, but then remember, we're talking about optimizing what's already there. So we've already got our calories in a deficit, we're already losing body fat, but we want to think about maximizing our activity, our output. And so this is why I generally tend to try and keep carbohydrates at a reasonably high level to facilitate that exercise. Now, it is true that if you have a high fat content in your diet and you're still within a calorie deficit, yeah, you'll lose weight, fine. And the body does put into place certain adaptations where it can use fat better for fuel, and it can restore glycogen levels from from fat and from protein and a few other things. Those are adaptations, and although I totally agree that that is possible, why make the diet harder for yourself? Yes, you can lose body fat and restore glycogen with using keto dieting, but it is hard to do that. It's a hard diet to follow. Not for everybody, I do get that, but it's something that people jump on in order to lose weight quickly. And when I'm talking about weight, I'm not talking about body fat. They're talking about losing weight by dropping their carbs, so they drop glycogen out of their muscles, not fully but a little bit, and then they drop water because of that, and as a result their weight drops quickly, but then they see a plateau come on about a week to 10 days after that. So it's not fat that you're losing, it's weight at the beginning of keto. And so dropping the carbs to 0 levels and increasing your fats, I would say, is something that potentially is going to be hard for a lot of people. Certainly people who've come to me for work and have tried keto, have absolutely hated it, got some results, yes, initially, but then they couldn't stick it, went back to carbs and gained loads of weight. So for my clients, my coaching, when I talk to people, I say, look, let's get a more realistic diet, something which you can follow, which you can walk into any shop and go, right, I'm going to have that and that fits my diet, that fits my calories, comes towards my protein and carb and fat level, and I'm fine with that. So that's what we're talking about, making sure we're talking about macro targets, not things that we have to religiously stick to. So I do try to keep carbohydrates in the diet where possible. Some clients I work with, such as people with PCOS or Hashimoto's or something like that, do find it harder to keep carbs higher, and yes, you have to make adjustments for that. But as a general rule, people, once they've started to lose weight, they're not severely overweight, we can keep carbs at a reasonable level. And I do encourage people to work out in the gym, to do some sort of exercise, whether it's swimming, walking, cycling, or whatever. I do encourage resistance exercise as part of my weight loss program, because resistance exercise is so good for you. There's so many benefits, more than I can go over in this video, but there are so many benefits to resistance exercise. You don't have to decide you want to be a Hulk or Mr. Universe or anything like that. All you need to do is train with weights. It makes your body get better. It makes your muscles absorb glycogen faster. It creates enzymes that create glycogen faster, so that all the carbs that you're eating go into your muscles over being converted to fat potentially. There are so many benefits. So in order to keep that flowing, that exercise flowing, I do recommend some carbs. Now, the way I work out carbs for a client is I work out firstly their protein requirements, so I get that in first. Then we look at the fat requirements. Normally, when I'm looking at fat requirements for a client, I'll try to stick, and this is for a weight loss client, I'm trying to stick to around about 0.5 to 0.6 grams of fat per kilo. So for example, for me, I'm about 90 odd kilos at the moment, so that'll be 45 to 50 grams of fats in a day, which is quite a lot. I can get that in quite easily. Excuse me. And then so once we've worked out the protein calories and the fat calories, we work out what that is in total calories and take that away from our calorie deficit number that we've created from our calculator, and then that amount of calories is what you get from carbohydrates. Normally it works out between 2 to 3.5 grams of carbs per kilo. So then we've got a macro split which we can apply to our diet. Now, remember I talked at the beginning, are macros essential? I already said that macros aren't essential for fat loss, but it is helpful for people to have an idea about what to eat to. So for example, when I say to someone when they're looking for their diet, I do construct them a diet plan, a template built from the meals they like, and I say, look, here's a sample template for you to try and aim for, and here is the macros that fit that template. So if they want to create another meal, for example, so if I say spaghetti bolognese and it's this much protein, this much fat, this much carbohydrates, I say, well, if you can create another meal if you want using an app like MyFitnessPal or the Libra app that I use for my clients, you can create another meal matching those macros, and that will be around about right for you. So it helps clients to have an idea what to aim for. You can say to them, okay, well, this meal is 500 calories, but then they've got to think about, oh, well, I've got to put 500 calories, and they might go for a 500 calorie food, which is, say, ice cream. Now, I've already said that ice cream isn't great for controlling your hunger, but they could do that if they want. They would hit their calories fine, and they'd be able to have that food fine. But most people want to swap it out for a proper meal. So giving them macro targets is a good way for them to be more creative and take control and have this choice element. I'm really big on choice, and my 3 C's are clarity, choice, consistency. You know, if they know what their calories are, clarity, and they know what their macros they should be aiming for, they can then make a choice as to what they're going to eat, because they can get meals that can fit that, and then they can do that again and again, which gives them consistency. And those are the 3 C's of essential dieting. So long-term weight loss, that's the 3 C's that you need. Now, that's all in a perfect world. However, what people have done is then taken it past that. And so what they end up with when they're looking at macros and trying to hit their macros for the day, when they haven't got maybe meal templates to stick to, is what happens is they get to the end of the day and they say, oh, well, I've got 5 grams of protein, I've got 5 grams of carbs, and I've got something like 6 grams of fats left to have. What can I have that fits those macros? And what they then do is they go searching for a food that fits those macros. And then they find some obscure food that does fit it. They eat that, they don't feel very full, and so, I just wasted that. Now, because they're so obsessive about those those macros that they have to eat to, they've just totally forgotten that it's calories that matter. It's not macros when it comes to fat loss. And when we think about that, we put that in a big perspective. If you've eaten to your macros and you hit those sort of targets within 10% variance for the day, when you get to the end of the day, you've got that small amount, which is about 100-ish calories. Well, you don't have to go out searching for 5 grams of protein, 5 grams of carbs, and then 5 grams of fats. All you have to do is go and eat a banana, because that's 100 calories or thereabouts, and that fits the calories you've got left. At that point, don't worry about the macros. You've already done the 80% of what you need to, and further, you don't need to religiously stick to the macros when you're right at the end of the day and you've got those little things left to hit. Don't worry about it. Just go and get something that fits the calories. If it's under 200 calories, you can probably find many things you can eat for that, and you'll still be in your calorie deficit for the day. And this is why I don't really coach exclusively on macros. I do say to clients, here's some guidance macros for you to hit to, but you've got about 10% variance, trying to hit between 10%, because people get so obsessed with, oh, my macros are this and I must stick to my macros. And I've seen people go online, oh, I've only hit 79 grams of protein today and it says 80, what am I going to do? And their world is falling apart because they're not hitting their macros. When actually, if you step back and go, hold on, mate, you've hit your protein targets, you're within 10%, don't worry about it. If you want, just carry those calories over to the next day and have a little bit more tomorrow, or just have a banana or whatever. Don't be so caught up on your macros that it's the end of your world if you can't hit those macros at the end of the day, because we're talking about flexibility on diet. That's why we give people macros for their diet. It's flexibility. And I want to be able to eat what I want. That's why you have a macros plan to stick to and not a rigid diet plan. So if you're getting OCD onto your macros, you're then going back into that prison diet, which is what I talk about, which is the restriction diet, where you can't eat this, you can't eat that, you have to eat within a certain time. If you're religiously sticking to macros and becoming OCD of your macros, you've just gone into a prison diet. And what's going to happen is you're going to get tired of that and come off it and start eating what you want and then gaining weight again. So be careful. Macro planning and macro dieting can be really, really good if you treat it for what it is, a nice flexible way to do your diet and hit within loose targets, so you're making sure you're hitting your calorie deficit. If you go OCD on it and treat it like I must hit those macros or it's the end of the day, you're then into a prison diet. You're going to not like that. You're going to jack it in after a while, and then you're going to get back to frustration, and then that is the endless circle. I talk about confusion, prison and frustration. That's the problem most people are facing. So they start off with confusion, okay, they get clarity because they want a macro diet, but then they go into a prison because they're OCD, and then they jack that in and they get to frustration. Why doesn't my diet work for me? I tried to do the macro thing, it didn't work for me. It didn't work for you because you went all in on it and you didn't think about the flexibility, is what macro dieting actually is flexibility, giving you the choice, but you then become into a prison. You then take the choice away from yourself because you've got this rigid prison that you want to stick to. So you don't have to stick to your macros. As long as you're hitting your calories, you're fine. Macros are the next level up. They help you hit certain targets and hit certain body composition targets and workout targets, performance targets. But don't treat it as in something you have to do religiously, because if you do that, you're going to end up not doing your diet and coming off the diet and ultimately failing, and that will be very upsetting for you. So I hope this video has helped, has given you some insight. So if you want some more videos on calorie deficit and macro planning and stuff, they are on my playlist under the weight loss series playlist. If you found this video helpful, please share it, please like it, do all those things that help the metrics go up and get my video shown to more people. I really appreciate that, and I will see you on the next video. Cheers.